Welcome, 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 Wisdom of Womanhood listeners. I am truly, truly so excited for this conversation because I know there is already so much value that is going to come from it. So I invite you to take some time, really listen to all of the messages and the insight and the conversations that are going to come out from this, because it is going to be potent. As always, I am Showy Moon and I am joined by beautiful Pippa, baby making Pippa, who is cooking away over there. How are you feeling this week, Pippa?
I'm good. I just had my last scan today, so it was nice to see baby boy growing nicely. Yeah.
Big too, eh?
Oh yeah, he's she said he's gonna be a big one. I was like, great, thanks.
Well, your husband's a big man,
He
so
is a
there's
big
some
man.
good genetics going on there.
I know.
And this week we have another guest on. Now, before I introduce this beautiful human, when Pippa and I started speaking about who to invite into the space that we were creating, Pauline was one of the first people that came to my mind. And the reason why is that many years ago now, I actually was trying to work this out. I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I came across a book called The Spiritual Entrepreneur. And when I read this, it really changed the trajectory of my life because I had an idea about what it was to be an entrepreneur and what it was to be spiritual. And what this book did that was so beautiful for me was start to pair together two different parts of me. And I highly, highly would recommend it. So today we have with us Pauline, who's joining us from Australia. And honestly, we're so grateful she's taken the time. She is I love this description of yourself, a conscious entrepreneur, international keynote speaker, and life coach who integrates science and spirituality into her life, her teachings, and her coaching. And so I just re-listened to your book, and I recommend it to Pippa. We've just like blitzed through it. And it was really beautiful coming back to it at a different stage of life as well, and even learning more things from it and from your story with the person that I am today. So thank you from past me and present me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your words. And thank you both for having me and for your support from supporting the book and my social media. And it is my joy to be here with you today. And hello to all your listeners.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
awesome.
special. So we'd love to start off. Your story it's fascinating, like as well as having it's a roller coaster. It really is. But it's a fascinating story in itself, and I'm really big on us not being defined by that. And like we were speaking about before, you are so many different parts of who you are. But I would really love if you could share part of your story so far and the parts that right now, the version of you are today, feel really important to share, because I know that changes over time as well.
Oh, no, absolutely. It does change over time. And I think one of the questions I kind of say, sigh, double sigh, when I get asked that question about what was that one pivotal moment that changed your life? And it's like, fuck, there are a gazillion pivotal moments that change my life constantly. How can it possibly just be the one pivotal moment? Ask a better question and you will get a much better answer, So I appreciate that comment that you made, that, things change, we change constantly. And I always have a giggle because as I'm quite active on social media. I speak on the world stage. I've written 2 books, both of which are award-winning. And so I have a lot to say and a lot to express. And I have a giggle because those who know nothing about my background, know nothing about my vast knowledge base, because the life we live have to be the lessons that we teach. The lessons the lessons that we teach have to be the life that we live, right? And so I spoke to someone recently, and I mentioned my very difficult upbringing, and they just had this look on their face. What? You're a boat person? What? You grew up with violence and trauma? what, you actually lived it like in serious conditions, almost poverty? I'm like, yeah. How can I teach it if I did not live it? I thought that you came from privilege because of where you are now. And I said, I'm actually going to take that as a compliment. I'm actually going to take that as a compliment, because we can't be defined by our past. And I look back on my life and I look back on my childhood, and I don't see myself as a victim. I see myself as the beneficiary of all the things that happened to me and for me and through me and from me. And so we all have a choice. We have a choice to either be victim or beneficiary. And I choose to be the beneficiary. I choose to look back on my life, and I see that as my training. I see that as my training. And so how could I possibly teach that if I did not live it? And I think it's so important these days, that when you have a coach, a teacher, a mentor, we have to do this vibrational audit of who we're listening to, who we're researching, what are we reading, what are we ingesting in our mouths, what are we ingesting into our eyes and into our ears. Have they walked the walk? Have they actually lived it? And I know you both have incredible credentials for your expertise in your field as well, which is why you deserve to have a podcast. And so I think it's so very, very important that whatever lessons we teach, it must have been the life that we lived. And so, yes, I am a boat person. My family and I escaped by boat. My father built a boat and smuggled us out with two other families just a little bit after the Vietnam War ended. And he was determined that if we died at sea, at least we would all die together, because one of the things he would say is that it's not only that they want to take our freedom, they want to take our thoughts as well. And if he was caught, they would put him in the re-education camps, which was worse than anything, where you get brainwashed. And so we spent 9 days out at sea. I was 3 years old. My brother Lewis was 2. 9 days out at sea. Now, we were part of the lucky ones. What do I mean by that? Because my father had the courage to smuggle us out. We were one of the first waves to leave Vietnam. The later waves of boat people weren't so lucky, because the pirates caught wind of the bounty that was now at sea. And so a lot of the boat people were raped multiple times by the pirates, killed, pillaged, abused, held captive. And so there's a lot of trauma that came with this generation. A lot of trauma. So we're now not just talking about the atrocities of war. We're now also talking about the atrocities at sea. And so from there, going into a refugee camp, and this is trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And so we stayed a year in the refugee camp. My father's job as a lieutenant in artillery during the Vietnam War was to go back to the scene and count the dead bodies after a kill. And so he had all of that. His father and his father's father were also very abusive, violently so. And so coming to a new country, Australia accepted us in 1978. Coming into a new country, we didn't know the laws, the language, the systems. We had no money. And we came into this new country. I was 4 by this time. My brother Lewis was 3. My mother gave birth to my brother Luke in the refugee camp. And so when we left Vietnam, she was pregnant with him at the time, and she didn't know it until we were in the refugee camp. And coming to Australia, she also suffered from tuberculosis. And looking back at some of the photos, she's skeletal, right? And so there's all this pressure on my father, having all these compounded events. And as children, my father did not know what to do with his anger. And so he dumped it on my mother, and soon he dumped it on us kids. So I know what fear smells like. I grew up with fear. I know what it means to have experienced emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, violent abuse. I also know what it means to be hypervigilant.
Mhm.
Mother wounds, father wounds, all those things. I grew up as a young adult doing a whole lot of self-betrayal, a whole lot of self-harm. And so I can speak to those things because I have experienced it, because I have walked it. And so I ran away from home at 17. I spent many years hiding from my father. If he found me, he would probably kill me. And I was determined to prove my father wrong. His mentality, his mindset was the only reason why my daughter would run away is because, one, she's either become a drug addict or fallen pregnant to this phantom boyfriend he had concocted in his head. And I was neither. I prayed to God that there had to be a better life than this for me. I was the most miserable kid at school. One thing I did learn growing up was the entrepreneurial spirit. My father had a restaurant. He also had an ice cream parlor, which sold the most delicious fresh fruit ice cream. He had a cafe. We were Cabramatta's very first proper barista cafe. And we also had a video library. And he operated a driving school on the side. So video library, restaurant, cafe, ice cream parlor, and driving school. And us kids provided the child labor. I started working full-time at 7, at the age of 7. I learned how to make delicious ice cream. I learned how to, run a restaurant, as in runner in the restaurant. All about hospitality, all about service. My brother Lewis was 6. My brother Luke was 4. Leroy was a newborn. And we all worked in the restaurant and the other businesses. And so we grew up with a ferocious work ethic, a really ferocious work ethic. We really had no choice. If we didn't work hard, if we didn't get good grades at school, we were literally beaten up. That was my life. That was my life growing up. And so I ran away from home. I was determined to prove my father wrong. I studied really hard, got really good grades, got a degree, a Bachelor of Communications degree at UTS University. And while I was at university, I worked in some of the most prestigious restaurants in Sydney because I knew about flavor, I knew about hospitality, I knew about all those things. And I worked hard, really, really hard. And I caught the attention of some of the best chefs and sommeliers, and I was under their tutelage. And as most people would know, when you're working in hospitality and at uni, we can have lots of naughty times. I partied a lot, took shitloads of drugs, got smashed pretty much every weekend, because that was it, was a uni, hospo, get trashed, and it was a party. And from here, I got to meet some really influential, very wealthy people at these parties. I entertained a lot of these people in the jobs that I had as well. And so I got to hang out with the very rich and the very elite. And during this time, I experienced something that was so fascinating to me. It's like, why are you guys miserable? You don't have the right to be miserable. Look at your fancy car, your fancy clothes, look at the lifestyle that you lead. My parents have a right to be miserable. Look at their life. I have a right to be miserable. How are you unhappy? And that really started the trajectory on this like obsession that I had, that, wait a minute, I thought, and because I witnessed that with my parents, I thought that if you were rich, all your problems disappeared, all your problems. And I know it now, and as you guys know it now, and I'm sure most of your listeners do as well, it's an inside job.
Mm.
It's an inside job. And so I started to travel a lot, and I had this curiosity. Is it better to be rich but unhappy, or happy but not rich? Why does it have to be an either or proposition? Can't we have both? And that's when I realized that deep spirituality, happiness, fulfillment, material wealth can coexist. And how do I know that? Because I have walked the walk. I have created it to be so. And so I love combining those two terms, spiritual entrepreneur. My book is called The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur, The 7 Secrets to Becoming so freaking badass, basically.
Yeah.
To becoming fearless, stress-free, and unshakable in business and in life. And so to combine the two is to really destroy the myth that spiritual people can't be wealthy.
Mm.
And it's like, money is energy. How can I continue my mission? How can we continue to give my children a good life? How can I continue to live a life in spirit and inspired if I am poor?
Mhm.
And why can't I be happy while I have fulfillment and riches and all those things and wealth? And wealth doesn't just mean money in the bank, right? Wealth means how expansive our heart is, how kind we will be, how powerful our body is, how expansive our spirituality is. So to live this life now, spirituality for me is how now do I live my life in spirit and inspired? And so some of the most successful people I know live their lives in spirit and inspired. And, you both will know to be spiritual has nothing to do with religion. I believe it's religion that needs spirituality.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Spirituality does not need religion. And the more and more we do this work, I understand that I also have to present it in a way that doesn't polarize people. And it's part of the course, right? Part of the course that we have to be wordsmiths. We have to present it in the way where we have to say, I have to explain it in a way where spirituality also meets science and spirituality, because spirituality freaks a lot of people out because they don't understand that it is really about self-mastery. It's about self-leadership. It's about self-sovereignty. It's about self-transcendence, self-actualization. It's not about this woo mystical thing. I believe that spirituality needs to be taken out of the fucking clouds and put back into our bodies where it belongs. That's what true spirituality is. It's not this love and light and, do no harm and do no harm, but fucking take no shit either, and so that's what the spirituality that I teach is. But we have to craft it in a way with the science part as well. Spirituality is physics that has yet to be explained, and so that it bridges cultures, so that people are not so polarized by it, because we know that the collective consciousness is opening more and more to this. And so in my work, I have led, I've coached, I've taught, and I have a lot of followers now who are entrepreneurs who used to do things the old way. I'm so happy that I lived the life that I did growing up and watching my parents work like dogs, watching my parents suffer. They don't suffer now, but that gave me this beautiful anti-model for how not to live entrepreneurship. They had no joy in their lives, no joy. And I pretty much copied all of that in my early entrepreneurship years, and my body suffered, my mental health suffered, my spirit suffered. And so I do things very, very differently now. So I have walked the walk. The life we live must be the lessons that we teach. The lessons that we teach must be the life that we live. And so now I travel, I speak on the world stage, I speak to spiritual entrepreneurship, I speak to self-leadership, I write, I teach, I coach, I mentor, practice a whole lot of shamanic practices as well in my work, which is why I get results for my clients so fast. And you know what? I'm having so much fun doing it. I'm having so much fun doing. Is it really work? Is it really work? Really work for me? I have to get up and, teach and then, log on to a podcast at 4 and chat to two really hot women, and, then my work day's done, and so
Winning.
we live a life by design now, because we've designed it to be that. We no longer live a life by default.
Yeah. Ooh. So if you are not already thoroughly inspired, you know what I
hope that answered your question.
yeah, really well. Do you know what I love about you is that you bring your essence into everything that you are in and that you produce and that you share. I love listening to your audiobook because I can hear it in your voice. You've so deeply integrated your sense of knowing into how you show up in the world. And for anyone that just listened to you, you can hear that and feel that. And that's truly what we desire for everyone, right? Is for them to feel their own essence and be able to allow whatever their dharma, whatever their magic, whatever it is, to move through them without the shackles of their own stories or societal conditioning or generational trauma or whatever it is, right? And I feel that in your energy. I really feel it from you. And often what it takes, and it's why I love that you've stepped so much into these into places where you're reaching more people, through the speaking and through all of the things you're doing, because sometimes people need to actually feel what that feels like to know it's possible.
Yeah, when we do this work and we talk about shamanism, or we talk about activations, or we talk about being in the orbit, it's not something that you can explain. It's something you have to experience, because some things are not meant to be explained. Some things are not meant to be cerebrally understood. You have to experience it on a somatic level. And so one thing I give a lot of my students shit for is that, are you integrating the work? What does it all mean if you don't integrate it? You can log on to the group sessions. You can read as many books as you want, but if you keep it in your head and you don't bring it down into your body, you don't make the deliberate effort to say, this week, Pauline taught me this. How now can I take that into my everyday life and have this regenerative conversation? Unless it's regenerative, unless I now take that bit of learning and observe it in my family or use it as my work, and unless we make those practices, we can't integrate it. And then it means no thing. It means you've just logged on, you've just listened. And so I would encourage the listeners, when they're learning something in your head, bring it down into your body. The feeling is the secret. The integration is the secret. How can I sprinkle this into my life? How can I see the insights? What are the insights in planting these seeds into everything that I do? Only then can we speak to embodiment. Only then can we speak to empowerment. Only then can we speak to transformation. Transformation can only happen if there's integration. It's a really important thing. Yeah.
There's a question that's come up and around this and what you're sharing that flows on really beautifului from our last topic, which was on the father wound. So
You've read my mind, shall we?
Yeah, and then the father wound, and your story about your relationship with your father, even the way you've just shared it, is it's really raw and honest, and it feels as if, and feel free to correct me in this, but it feels as if what you've done in your journey in that, but also as a reflection of what you've done for yourself, is that true integration and acceptance. You've seen him for the aspects of him that caused great harm. You've seen him for the generational things that have occurred and through epigenetics. And then you had this reconciliation and you saw him, for the man that he is in the present. And I think that that's something that so many people struggle with. But like you were just saying, and I'd love your thoughts on this, for me and my own experiences and working with clients, is that in order to be able to see people for truly everything that they are, we also have to do the same for ourselves, right? We have to see all of the parts of ourselves and the shadow and the light and the things that we've done that we look back on and, not with shame or regret, but we look back on and we accept that that was what we were doing in order to survive, or what we were doing with the tools that we had or the support we had at the time. And to come to that place in your relationship with your father, it was really inspiring for me to listen to. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that concept of the full integration of whole self, shadow, light, all the different parts, and also how that impacted and came out into your relationship with your father.
Sure. If the distinction needs to be made that when we're speaking to this work, where I am speaking to being a grown-ass adult, yes? Yeah. We're not speaking to a child who had no power and showed up the way that I had to show up in the home. I was a child. That was not my fault nor my responsibility, but my healing is my responsibility, right? That's my job. That's my job. I stopped blaming my father because that was making me sick. I had a right to. I had a right to, but now I am an adult. He has no power over me. And yet so many of us hold on to that victimhood because we may be addicted to the emotion of, when I think of these thoughts, I feel these feelings and I might find some comfort in that. Or I refuse to change the story because I want to play victim. Who am I without this story? Mm-hmm. Who am I without the story of I was abused? And you know what, for me, it's like I got tired of telling that story. And so now I tell that story in service of others. Yeah. I don't tell that story because I want to feel the hate or all of that again. And it was like substantial abuse. But I also don't agree with a lot of spiritual bypassing teachers who say, forgive your abusers, forgive them. Forgive is to give something before they have given something back, before they have repented, before they have apologized, before they have made amends. The only real apology is changed behavior, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to give anything before. I'm not going to forgive before he changes his behavior. And so I don't agree with the conversation that, to be spiritual is to forgive everyone. I don't believe that at all. Neither. It's like, it makes no sense for me. And when I hear it, I just go, oh, shut up. And then I'll just turn it off or, scroll. And so I believe forgiveness is an arising. Forgiveness is an arising. Mm-hmm. And so it is an arising, especially when we do heart work. Our heart is the barometer for our future. The collective consciousness has lived so much in our heads. And so we make up these excuses, we make up these reasons, we make up versus living in our hearts. And what is the heart work? The heart work is heart activation, the understanding that the heart is the most powerful magnet, the practice of expanding our magnetism, the practice of understanding that it's not about the arrow hits the target, it's about the target attracts the arrow. Your heart will be the target that attracts the arrow. And so when we do the heart work, our heart will do the forgiving for us. Mm. And so it becomes this unfolding, it becomes this arising. And so we have to be patient. Mm. We have to take responsibility for our own healing. Versus living in this fight, this anger, this hate. And so it was an arising for me. The more I activated my heart, the more I lived in my heart space, and providing also that both my parents and my father took right action. This is a big part. He took right action. And, my parents are annoying, as most parents are. I'm sure I'm annoying to them too, right? But the thing is that it's an arising. Both parties have to take right action to make amends, to resolve, to reconcile again and again and again. And then all of a sudden, forgiveness arises.
Yeah.
Because they've done something to deserve it. And so I look back at it now, me taking absolute responsibility for my own healing. It's not what part I played when I was a child. I had no power when I was a child. But as an adult, what part do I play now? Because I love myself too much. I love my heart too much. My children are watching me.
Yeah.
My parents are also human. They didn't have the tools that I have. They didn't know any better. But you know what? I know better. I have the tools. I am educated in this space. And so the more perspectives we can hold, the more free we will become. Our hearts will be the barometer for our future. The more we love our heart, the more we forgive our heart, the more we do the heart work, our heart will love for us. Our heart will forgive for us. Our heart will relieve all the pressure for us. And so from that heart space, we expand our aperture. We expand our aperture. And therefore, the more perspectives we can hold, the more free we will become. And then we can get out of victim consciousness and get into co-creator consciousness. And that's where the magic happens, right? That is spirituality in and of itself, to live our lives in a more spirited way.
And even that comment in the book that really stuck with me around him describing you and your siblings as the lotus.
Yeah.
And it was just such a like perfectly poetically articulated analogy for him taking ownership and also feeling this deep sense of pride. And I still have shivers, from it now. And I love what you're saying is that it has to be space created in both hearts, right? And what a beautiful thing to have created that for one another.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I'm enjoying just sat here just listening. I'm just like in my element right here, just in awe of you, Pauline.
Oh, thank you for your words. But I love podcasts. Podcast is the new cafe, right?
Yes.
Totally.
Coffee, tea,
I don't
water.
drink coffee, so I like this better.
Yeah. And have a chat about meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
It's great that Shawi touched upon the father wound, because that was kind of like throughout your book, there was I was kind of rooting for you both. I was like, I wanted that. I wanted not like a happy ending, but I was really keen to keep reading to be like, did things get resolved? And to hear that they did, in some degree was just, I remember crying at that bit and I cried at this bit. And I remember like, I was sat on the cruise on the balcony and I'd just go read it as on my Kindle and I'd just be like, and my husband would be like, are you okay? Is it a sad part? I said, no, it's just so powerful and I'm just feeling all of it. And and I think the part that got me the most is when you and your brother were working with, the older generation, and you wrote that passage about what you observed. God, if I think about it now, I read it like 10 times and I read it out to my husband, and just how you articulated the words of what you observed was so beautiful. And I think what got me emotional is because, one, I'm on a cruise, which my grandparents loved to cruise with us, and they're not here anymore. So watching them, grow old in the older, the old homes. And then my father-in-law was in a home and he died last year, unfortunately. So it was just that emotion of feeling like, I know what that feels like to be around those people where they're just, the last few weeks or week of life and how they live and just what you observed. And that bit just got me. I was choking up for like an hour. I couldn't speak. And I think it was just if you could share parts of that, because obviously reading it, you have to read the book. That bit was just really pivotal for me, as in just, I'm a big believer in, if I'm struggling, what helps me is I meditate and go to an older version of me and think, God, what would my 80, 90, 100-year-old self say? And reading the 5 Regrets of the Dying and really taking, death to that level. So I think, if you could put that into a nutshell, like being in that place, especially with your brother too, and experience with your brother with the cooking and everything, was just the funness of it. But then they were just living the last moments there. You got to watch that.
I'll speak to both the lotus flower story as well as when we were in the hospice. One thing that being in the hospice made me realize was I have to do better. I have to fucking do better. Do better for the ones I love. Do better for my parents. Do better for my children. I have to do better because regret is the selfish bastard that robs us of precious time and precious energy. And so everything that I do now, whether it be I show up as my joyful self or I show up as my badass, ass kicking self, however I show up, will I regret this? Will I regret this? And so I don't want to live with regret. And regret doesn't mean this love and light existence where, don't hurt anyone. No. It's do no harm, take no shit, right? But we have to do better. I have to do better. I get asked on occasion when I'm on podcasts or interviews, is there anything I regret? And you know what? There's one big thing that I regret, that when I was a self-obsessed, selfish, amateur teenager human being, I watched my grandmother's decline. She died, she's became quite senilic and had dementia, and her body shriveled and shrunk, and she'd repeat stories, and she'd forget things, and she just acted strange and weird and all those things. And I didn't know any better, but now as an adult, I know better. And so working in that hospice, my brother Lewis, who has such a big heart, and I really came along for the ride, and we'd cook for the staff and we'd cook for the old people. And it was, part and parcel of being Asian. We were treated like the help, right? They didn't realize that we were there as volunteers trying to make contribution, and they thought we were the staff. We thought that we were the cooks. And there was so much joy in teaching the women how to roll spring rolls, right? They were so slow, and they would bicker to one another, and then like argue, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. And it was so much fun. And 2 of them passed away, one after the other. They were very good friends. It really gives you a very different perspective on life. It opens up our aperture. And the stories, if only I told her how much I loved her. If only I did not listen to my parents. If only I left the country and followed my heart. And there was so many stories of regret. That was one of the biggest themes of speaking to the elderly who were, close to their final days. They were in transition. And that was a pivotal experience for me, really pivotal experience, because I don't want to live with regret. We have to do better as human beings. We have to show humanity, show our humanity, show the best of our humanity, so that we can also push our humanity forward, so that we can evolve. That was a really pivotal time for me. So I look at the time with my parents very differently now, because regret is that selfish bastard that robs us of precious time and precious energy. And so my father, with the Lotus story, my first book is called Secrets of the Red Lantern. I won Debut Writer of the Year for that book. That was released in 2007. this latest book, The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur, I won Best Entrepreneurship and Small Business Book Award. So taking business and entrepreneurship from a very different angle. And in both books, I tell this story that when I wrote Secrets of the Red Lantern, it's a very dark and personal memoir, which I disguise as a cookbook. so people would buy it. What I have to give some context. I own Red Lantern. It's the most awarded Vietnamese restaurant in the world. We've been around. This is our 23rd year in business. So Secrets of the Red Lantern is also about the Red Lantern restaurant. And the secrets within the restaurant, as well as the secret recipes. So that's the context of why I disguised it as a cookbook. And it's not meant to be a scathing account about my father. It's a beautiful story about personal freedom and family and hope. But in order to talk about the good stuff, we have to talk about the not so good stuff as well. There are 10 chapters all up in my book. And it was my intention to finish the book and then give it to my father so that he could see the book in its entirety, and reading the entirety of it, he could see what a beautiful story it really is. But he came into the restaurant one day, and that image is very, very vivid in my mind. We had a editorial meeting. So if you can imagine, he comes to visit, he knows that Pauline's writing some book. She's always writing something. And there's the editor, there's the chief editor, there's the graphic design person, there's myself, and this table covered in family photos, a photo of himself, all these recipes, right? And it dawned on him, and I saw this look on his face, and this look said, holy shit, this is serious. And he went to the back, and he sat there for the longest time quiet. And he said, so how much of the book have you written? And I said, I'm up to chapter 7. He goes, I want to read it. Chapter 7 is the worst chapter about my father. He can't read it now. It's the worst, the most scathing account about my father. He can't, I need to finish it and then give it to him, but you don't say no to my father. And so I had no choice but to give him my unfinished manuscript. And I didn't hear from him for 3 months. And I needed to hear from him because I needed to finish this book. I needed to, well, how does this story end? Because I need to finish this book. And so I decided to go home and face the music. And I drove home. My daughter was newborn. And I'm in my car. I'm driving home to Bonnyrigg, and I've got all the somatic stuff happening. My stomach hurts, my shoulders are aching, my head's pounding, my throat's shrunk up. And I'm not scared that he's going to hit me or be violent or do anything. Like, I'm scared that I'm scared of the unknown. I'm scared because we've never done this before. I'm scared because I've never spoken to him like this before, but I needed to end the family pattern, right? I just needed to end this family pattern. And so we arrived to Bonnyrigg. I'm at the front door. They open the door. They're so happy to see Mia. They take her from me. They kiss her. They cuddle her. They're so in awe of her smallness. I'll go in, and my parents have always, their language, they speak through the language of food. It's very, very rare that they will give compliments or tell us they love us, but that's how they showed their love. And the dishes on this particular day, I remember so clearly: roast duck, caramelized prawns, tomato soup, and tomato prawns and bitter melon soup. And so we go in, we sit down to eat, and we're pretending, right? We're pretending. We're putting on this. We all know why we're here. And I've actually brought with me a case of my father's favorite red wines as a peace offering because, our family like to drink. And he says, I say to him, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about my book?" And he goes, "It's good. It's good. It's good. There's just one thing wrong. There's just one thing wrong." I said, "What's that one thing, Dad?" "The fish sauce recipe is wrong." What do you mean the fish sauce recipe is wrong? What the hell? We pretend some more. We pretend some more. And then I'm getting annoyed at this stage. And so I ask him again, "Dad, what do you think about my book?" And he gives me the same response about the bloody fish sauce recipe. And so I'm so upset right now. I'm upset that, things are never going to change. I'm never going to move on. I'm never going to finish my book. I don't know what to do. I grab my baby, I grab my things, I'm about to leave, and I ask him one last time, "Dad, what do you think about my book?" And so in a voice very sad and serious, he asks me, "Do you know why Buddha sits on a lotus flower?" It's like, "No, Dad, why does Buddha sit on a lotus flower?" And so he says, "There's nothing as beautiful as a lotus flower. Out of watery chaos, it grows, emerging from the depths of the muddy swamp, and yet remains so pure and unpolluted by it, so pure that you can eat it. You can eat all of the lotus flower. You can eat the roots, the seeds, the petals." But the lotus flower has another characteristic. Its stalk you can easily bend, but you cannot easily break. My children are lotus flowers. You have grown out of the aftermath of war. You have grown up in Cabramatta during its murkiest time. You've grown up in a refugee camp. And most of all, you've grown up with me. I am mud. I am dirt. I am shit. I'm very lucky to have you all. And so it was those words that I'd been waiting for over 20 years. And so he never gave me acknowledgement. He gave me acknowledgement. He never gave me an apology. He gave me acknowledgement of all the harm that he had caused us. And so later on, he says, that he believes that there's the right time and the right place for everything. And had he read the book some 10 years ago, he would have exploded and probably beaten the crap out of my brothers, myself, and my mother. And so for me, I believe that the universe will only hand to you that which it knows that you can handle at any point in time. The universe will only hand to you that which it knows that you can handle at any point in time. And so we need not be afraid. We need not be afraid, because if you could not handle that, the universe would not give it to you. And so this is why we are beneficiaries of all the things that happen to us, from us, through us, for us, around us. We are not victims, because the universe knows, and it will only hand to you that which it knows that you can handle.
Ooh. Thank you.
And so we're friends now. Where we joke, we muck around, but that's work on both parties, right? That's work on both parties. And so we become very response-able versus reenacting old patterns, and, to be continually calling them wounds. A wound is still open, a wound still weeps, versus calling them healed scars.
There is so much gold that is so universal in everything you just spoke into. And I love how when we can see our experiences from that outside perspective of truly the collective place, I know that every single person listening to this that has touched in some way, because truly it's about being human in relationship to other humans, right?
It's also very much about sovereignty.
Yeah.
I choose to stand in my power, and power is not force, right? power, what charges me, my spirit. This is what it means to be your sovereign self. It's that idea that there is no power or authority outside of you required to live your own independent life, required to choose the thoughts that create more joy.
Mhm.
So that we can take absolute full responsibility for how we show up, take responsibility for our own healing. We can't abdicate this stuff. We can't outsource this stuff. We have to do the work. And so the work is continually upskilling ourselves, continually gaining more perspectives, continually up-leveling ourselves again and again and again in this game called life, in this delicious game called life, right? And it's delicious, delicious.
So delicious.
I know from all
It's
the food that Pauline mentioned, I'm like, oh, I could just eat Vietnamase right now.
Now the
I'm
pregnant
so
woman's
hungry. It's like my favorite food.
Oh, the listeners, if you're in Australia, Sydney, come to Red Lantern.
Oh, I was in Sydney like 6 weeks ago, and if I'd known, I literally would have come to Red Lantern. I was in Sydney for a long weekend, and I would have said, "Let's get coffee." That's just me. I'm just a very much. I just
Next time you're in Sydney, let me know. I happen to know the owners.
Oh yeah, I am the
it's a great place. Yes. I feel like I felt so touched by spirit, like by universe, and having you in this co-creative space with us.
Bless
and
you.
like,
Thank you.
yeah, and it's so beautiful witnessing you as a vessel for not only the reclamation and the sovereignty within yourself, but the adding into the collective, being an active participant in your own life and also in the experience of everyone else. And I love watching you and the things that you're doing. And I find it very, very inspiring, because that is what I would love for everyone, right? Is that we can take responsibility for not only ourselves, but for the fact that we're constantly in this co-creative experience. Yeah. So let's add some rawness and some realness, but some play and some love and some fuck shit upness, you know?
That's what it means to be whole, right? That's what it means to be whole. And it's only, and I coach a lot of women in the space of self-betrayal, in that they are giving their power away. They're not standing in their sovereignty. They are in a relationship that is so damaging. And the work is become whole. Wait for better. Wait for better. Because when you are whole, that is when you're going to attract someone who is whole. And then you both stand in your king energy as well as your queen energy. Wait for better. Wait for better.
I just spent 3 years waiting for my better, and we manifested each other a couple of months ago.
Exactly. Because wholeness attracts wholeness. Fragmentation will attract fragmentation. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I honestly, I'm on this like heart high. Yeah. You created space for a heart high. There you go. You can add that to your CV now.
Yeah, I think Pauline's like, this has been like a long trailer of the book. So everyone's going to be like, right, I need to read the book now. It's been like just a great synopsis. Like, just if I hadn't read your book and I'd just listened to this conversation, I would be like, right, done, ping on, I bought it online or got it on the Kindle. And I remember Gowie recommended your book, and I just wanted a good book to take on holiday. And even my husband said, I've never seen you read something so voracious, like in such a short space of time. I'm the type of person that, if I get hooked, I get hooked, but I pick up different books and I just kind of take what I need from them. There's been a couple of books that I've stuck to, but I read your book within 8-9 days. I just couldn't put it down on the holiday. And I remember I just wanted to go sit on the balcony and just read it, because it was just the waves, and I was watching the dolphins and the birds, and I was just in such a beautiful space to read the book. And it just one of my absolute favorite books I've ever read.
I love that so much. Thank you so much. I have my writing mentors who were hounding me to finish the book, And I understand the time pressure, but I said to them, it's going to take time because I need to travel. I have 2 trips planned. I went to Nanaimo, British Columbia, and hung out with Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Lynn McTaggart, and then went on retreat with them because I needed to understand the spiritual science and spirituality side. And then they're like, okay, are you ready now? And I said, no, I'm going on a very intense and potent trip with my shaman to South America, and we were chasing the portals at the time when the portals were open. We took 14 flights in 2 weeks, Patagonia, Machu Picchu, Cusco, and I did intense upload, and vibrationally I was holding so much ancient information and modern technologies, and I just was vibing like this the whole time. And when we went to Lake Titicaca, I got altitude sickness because there was just so much going on. And then when I came back to Sydney, it was down like,
Yeah.
all into that book. And it's very similar to when I teach. People say, that was a lot. It was a lot. And it's like, well, yeah, better than you leaving going, she gave me nothing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot, but it does get revisited because at different stages in your life, you pick up different things. And that's something I get told a lot, and very similar to when I'm on stage with my stagecraft. No word is wasted, right? It's all, no breath is wasted. It's all very well crafted, and so it's not academic by any means, but it's certainly channeled.
Absolutely.
It's certainly
The
a
best.
channeled book. Thank you. And I'm launching my new course, my new program called Numinous: Transformational Strategies for the Spiritual Entrepreneur. And I had to rewrite the book for to weave in notes from the new program as well. So there's a new edition coming out, and the course will be released in August, September, and it is excellent. I have been revising. I'm going, Pauline, that is good. It is so
girl.
good. So I'm really happy with the job that we've all done on that one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, incredible. And honestly, I love when we start playing with the universe and you go like, something is already so incredible, and you go, yeah, but what more? Like, how much more could it be? Like, how much more incredible?
Yeah.
How much more magic? How many more miracles? How much more love? How much more? And I love like when there seems to be a very collective thing of like, how much, more can we just be curious about? Can we be open to experiencing? So now I'm like, you just telling me you made your book even better? I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
I'll wait till the course comes out. Oh my God, it's freaking amazing. It's a 3-month program, because I used to run a program called Accelerator, and that changed so many lives. But that was always live, right? And so this is an evergreen course with me, live activations every week. And so it's hybrid. That's how I get results so fast for my clients, because we combine the semantic, which is, of course, all the human behavior, the NLP, all the theory stuff that we are masters at, combined with the somatic of the body, of the breath, and then of course the soulmatic. I call it the juju work, the quantum work, the activations. Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
The rabbit hole goes deep.
Love some juju.
You want to be speaking to their subconscious, at the most optimal time when the doors to dimensions are open. Let me show you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So it's so it's combining all of that. I'm very excited for that course. That'll be launching in August, September. And I think also, Shelly, when you were talking before, every next level of our life is going to demand a next level version of us. We owe it to life We're here to evolve, to push our humanity forward, and mostly to do it with joy, to do it with joy. And so we become incredibly expansive, and we really are limitless. We really, really are limitless. And when we can really get that, like really get it, really, really get it, it's like, wow, it's not, I can do anything. It's not that. It is, wow, isn't life delicious? What else do I get to play with? What else do I get to co-create? Oh, how exciting. And then inspiration comes online, and we live our lives in spirit and inspired. And we start to ask very, very different questions. You know, we start to wake up and go, man, what do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? I want to feel sexy today. What am I going to do to feel that? Oh, who do I need in my orbit to help me to get to where I want to go faster? Who do I need to play with? Or what skill set do I need to learn in order to attract that person into my orbit? Do I have to practice more, learn more about charisma and influence and persuasion? And I want to speak on the world stage. Oh, what do I, now I need to learn nonverbals and stagecraft and, you know, posture and all. And it's like, man, isn't life delicious?
Yeah.
I get to do all these cool things, you know? So we are limitless in that way. When we understand that to be spiritual is to practice that self-mastery. Mastery is an ongoing evolution, right? I love that word, to become masterful at something. It doesn't end. It keeps going because you keep tweaking, learning. And that's when life gets so delicious. And then we get to choose. We get to choose where we want to play.
I love
That's
it.
the whole point, right? It's supposed to be luscious and delicious and all the things.
Yeah.
Oh my freaking goodness. Amazing. Okay, so we would love you to let everyone know the ways they can connect to you, how to find you. Obviously, you've got your 2 books. But I love your social media presence. Like, it's very educational and also raw and entertaining and all of the things at the same time. So yeah, where we can find you in all the places.
Oh yeah. So I'm active on Instagram, TikTok. I'm like new to TikTok, and that's been really interesting. I think I got something like it's probably, you know, common knowledge for everyone, but I like 40,000 followers or something in 3 months or something like that. It's like,
Awesome.
who knew? Who knew? And then of course LinkedIn. But look, my website is where you can go to find out all the different hats that I wear. And of course my book, The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur. And you know, keep an eye out for Numinous when it launches.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so very much. It has been my joy. Thank you.
Yeah,
it has been our joy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time, and thank you just for being you and continuing to find out the different parts of you and the evolution of you as you go, and reminding us all to do the same thing. That is a gift in itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you so much. Take care, and thank you to all your listeners.
Oh yeah. It's
Enjoy
been a
the rest of your
pleasure.
day.
Oh.
Mwah.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.